Today we're going to be talking about slope. And slope is the steepness of a line. So a positive sloping line, I think about it as you're walking up Mount Diablo. So this would be a positive slope, and I would say this might be greater than 1. Versus the one next to it, to the right of it, that's still a positive slope, but that's going to be a little bit less. Maybe that slope is 1/2. It's almost on the ground. Versus the one to the right, this is a negative sloping line. I'm sloping downhill, I'm sliding down the hill, and that's a pretty steep. That might be -3. The floor has 0 slope. Versus the wall is a slope that's undefined. I think about it as I can walk across the floor, that's a 0 slope, versus an undefined slope. I can't walk up a wall. And then my students always say, well, what if you're Spider-Man? Okay, if you're Spider-Man, then yes. And then the last one over here, I would say this is a negative sloping because I'm still sloping downhill. I'm still going downhill, but it's really not that steep at all. Our formula for slope. Make sure you know this. And if you remember the slope between 2 points, make sure you remember that the order matters. You do y2 minus y1, or x2 and x2 minus x1. That's also equal to y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. So whichever point you start with that you label in your head x1, then you have to stay with that one. So for example, in A, you go with y first. So I'm going to go -3 minus a -2. Now I started with -3. I started with that point, so I have to go 6 minus a -1. So I get a -1 on the top. I get a 7 on the bottom. So my slope is -1/7. Now B. Okay, again, remember y is on top. -4 minus a -4. I don't know which one I started with because they happen to be the same thing. Let's say I started with this one first. So then that's going to be 3 minus 8. I get a 0 over a -5. 0 divided by any number is 0. So just remember that's a straight horizontal line or a y equals line. What does y equal? Hey, y equals -4. Like I'm getting equations and lines. I'm getting ahead of myself. Finding the slope of this line. Now let's start with 2 minus a -7. Because I looked and I saw, well, 7 was negative. If I do minus a negative, that's going to be positive. I always like to do positive numbers. Start with this point. So 4 minus 4. I have a 9 over a 0. I can't have 0 on the bottom. So that slope is undefined. Okay, and that's our straight up and down line. That's an x equals line. Hey, what does x equal? X equals 4. All right, number 2. Now this one takes a little bit of work. I'm going to start with drawing the picture. Then I'm going to get into, okay, a line through the point 1, 2, and 3y has a positive slope. Okay, so I'm going to go through 1, 2, and makes a 60-degree angle measure counterclockwise with the negative x-axis. So my negative x-axis, I'm going to make a 60-degree angle. So when I draw my line, my positive sloping line, I go 60 degrees down from that x-axis. Find the value of y for the next point. So now this is our point that was 1, 2. When I go to 3, that point is 3y. Okay, let's look at this triangle. So I have that line. And I have this transversal. the dashed line and our x-axis are parallel. So I have here alternate exterior angles. So that means that angle's 60 degrees. The side, that means that angle's 30 because I have a right angle. This distance along the x-axis is 2 units. So the small leg is 2 units. That means the longer leg is 2 root 3. I know that's not how it looks in my picture. So that means from that y coordinate, which was 2, I go up 2 root 3. So my y coordinate is 2 plus 2 root 3. Now number 3, find one value of a such that the points are collinear. If 3 points are collinear, then their slopes have to be the same. So set up 2 equations with slope. Set up that slope equation. 3 minus 2 is equal to -1 minus a. That equals slope. Now let's look at the slope of the first point and the second point. So then I have 3 minus a, y, 2, 3 minus a, -1 minus 3. Okay, simplify. 3 minus 2 is 1. Over a -1 minus an a equals 3 minus a over a -2. Wait, Marnell learned how to subtract. That's a -4. Jeez. So I have a -4, cross multiply, -4 equals 3 minus a times -1 minus a. First terms together. So FOIL out the right side. First terms, outer term, inner term, last term. Combine like terms. So I have an a squared minus 2a minus 3. Add the 4 over because it's a quadratic. So now I factor that. A minus 1 squared. So a minus 1 has to equal 0. A is equal to 1. Sometimes you're going to get 2 values here because it's going to factor something that looks a little different. There is your one lesson question for the day. Please make sure that is submitted on time, and please make sure you give your answers a fraction.